Spotlight. This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on India's growing defence prowess. The participants are Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defence analyst, and Vishal Dahiya, journalist.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and today we are discussing India's self-reliance in the defense sector. In fact, India is rapidly increasing its self-reliance in defense manufacturing, defense sector, and this is marked by a surge in indigenous production, rise in exports, and a strategic shift from import dependence to domestic manufacturing of various arms, ammunitions, missiles, fighter jets, and of course, the naval frigates. Let's first listen into Prime Minister's views on India's self-reliance in defense sector before we start our discussion.
सेनाओं के सशक्त होने के लिए उनका आत्मनिर्भर होना बहुत आवश्यक है। हमारा हर औजार, हमारा हर शस्त्र, हमारा हर पुर्जा जैसे जैसे भारतीय होता जाएगा, हमारी ताकत को चार चांद लग जाएंगे। हमें गर्व है कि पिछले एक दशक से हमारी सेनाएं तेजी से आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर कदम बढ़ा रही है। पिछले 11 वर्षों में हमारा डिफेंस प्रोडक्शन 3 गुना से ज्यादा हो गया है। पिछले साल तक ये रिकॉर्ड 1.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए से अधिक पहुंच गया है। मैं एक और उदाहरण देश को बताना चाहता हूं। 2014 से अब तक भारतीय शिपयार्ड से नौसेना को 40 से ज्यादा स्वदेशी युद्धपोत और पनडुब्बियां मिले। अब तो औसतन हर 40 दिन में एक नया स्वदेशी युद्धपोत या पनडुब्बी नेवी में शामिल की जा रही। हमारी ब्रह्मोस और आकाश जैसी मिसाइलों ने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर में भी अपनी क्षमता साबित की है।
Well, as we heard the Prime Minister about India's self-reliance in the defense sector, we are also joined by retired Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, a defense analyst, on the show here for more detailed discussion on this issue. General Kulkarni, welcome to Spotlight, and thank you for sharing your valuable time with us. As the Prime Minister was pointing out, and when we look at the data also, there has been a threefold increase in defense manufacturing within India. That is indigenous manufacturing, from around 46,000 crore rupees worth of defense manufacturing in 2014 to around 1.5 lakh crore in 2025. And we plan to double it, that is, take it to around 3 lakh crore rupees by 2029. A very ambitious target, would you say? And we are right on the path?
Thank you very much, Vishal. We're wishing all our listeners a very, very happy Diwali. And it was a proud moment for all of you to hear to our Prime Minister. As always, he spends his Diwali with the troops. And this time he spent a night with the naval boys on INS Vikrant. And thereafter, his speech, as always, inspiring and wanting us to become Atmanirbhar in terms of defense equipment is concerned. I think, Vishal, it is very much feasible. Because the very fact that we were about 40,000 crores around 2014, and we've touched almost a lakh and 50,000 crores now, and therefore it is attainable to become, because our requirements are also growing. What we are spending, about 6.81 lakh crore of our defense budget, is expected to go to 30 lakh crore defense budget by that point of time. And therefore, if now only we are able to actually utilize about 70% of our budget in the indigenous defense production, I'm sure we would be able to do that in our own budget, which is about 2% of the GDP, which is expected to grow to about 3 to 4% of the GDP by then, is indicative that we have to be Atmanirbhar. We must ensure that all of it, because to be dependent is not being independent. So we have to be of freedom of action, to be able to ensure security, to see to it that as the third largest economy in the world, which we will be in the next about 4 to 5 years, we have to be ensuring our territorial integrity and sovereignty. And aim is not warmongering. Aim is preparation is the best form of defense.
General Kulkarni, and this is possible because, when we do a deep down on how it became possible in past decade or so, then pretty clearly, there's an ecosystem which has been put in place. There are policies which have been put in place, and there's a continuation of these policies as well. For example, the DAP 2020, the Defense Procurement Manual, DPM 2025, then defense offset policy, then defense investor cells to encourage, further investment. And of course, setting up defense testing infrastructure scheme, that is DITS. All this puts in place a robust ecosystem and takes care of all angles so that those who are putting their effort and money into the defense sector can come up with positive results, which can ultimately contribute to increasing our self-reliance in the defense sector.
Absolutely. Charji, you hit the nail on the head. Until and unless we make that ecosystem, until and unless we facilitate the private players, unless and until we facilitate the startup, unless and until we facilitate the interworking of the PSUs with private, the users, the manufacturers, the DRDO, all of them working together. It is this ecosystem, because defense needs are not ordinary needs. There are top class requirements are there, and therefore they can only be met when all of us are on the same page. So the government is acting as a facilitator to make sure, and that is why the first step that the government took in this was the corporatization of the Ordnance Factory Board. The moment the corporatization of the Ordnance Factory Board took place, then everybody was out in the open, and everything is there it's all transparent. There's nothing hidden, and that is the reason why we find that the naval shipyards have actually taken the lead, and that lead they took much before most of us did. And that is the reason why today the Prime Minister is saying that every 40 days we are able to either develop a frigate or a ship or a submarine. Otherwise it was impossible. Who would have ever thought that we could make one warship in just about 40 days?
When we look at the guided missile system as well, there has been a work going on, research work going on for a long period. And of late, we have had success in terms of indigenously developing various missile systems. Recently, we have tested 800-kilometer range for BrahMos as well. Now, these indigenous systems, the missile systems, the drone systems, the air defense systems, they've all not only, been made within India, but they've also stood the test of the time, to test of the field as well. We saw it recently in Operation Sindoor. All these equipments performing splendidly.
True. And that is the reason why our stock in the world market has gone up. Everybody has started looking at how come India in less than 100 hours would have a country like Pakistan go on their knees, which were actually supported exclusively by China. Even the Turkey came into the help. Even the US was trying to help them. And in that context, when they look at India and the precision, the way with which we use our BrahMos missiles, the way we use our air to the total destruction of the terrorist hideout, the terrorist training camps were hit, the air bases were hit, all the drones which are wanting to attack our air bases and our civilian centers were all brought down. What does that show? That speaks volumes of our technology. If it was just because it was indigenous, it could not be hacked. It could not be jammed because Akash was ours. Akash Tir was ours. So all the anti-drone systems were there. S-400 definitely was from Russia, but all others there. So all this helps to be able to showcase that if global south is to be led, if everybody is looking at India, if everybody is looking at India's leadership to be able to guide the world through this more difficult time, our technology has proven itself that yes, slowly and steadily, ours is a technology which can even put the world technology to be thinking that India has developed, India has arrived on the scene.
Okay, and since you mentioned, the export part, we'll talk more about it, but let's first listen into Prime Minister Narendra Modi's comments as well on the exports of indigenous defense equipment.
भारत तीनों ही सेनाओं के लिए हथियार और उपकरण एक्सपोर्ट करने की क्षमता बिल्ड कर रहा है. हमारा लक्ष्य है कि भारत पूरी दुनिया के टॉप डिफेंस एक्सपोर्टर देशों में शामिल हो. पिछले एक दशक में हमारा डिफेंस एक्सपोर्ट 30 गुना से अधिक बढ़ गया है और सफलता के पीछे हमारी बहुत बड़ी भूमिका डिफेंस स्टार्टअप की है, स्वदेशी डिफेंस इकाइयों की है.
Well, in fact, as the Prime Minister is saying, that's a tremendous jump as far as export of defense equipment is concerned. And that is one because, General Kulkarni, we would like to have your views on this. One, because the world has seen how our equipments, which are indigenously made, actually perform in the real test on the ground in a conflict situation. That is one. And two, also, we have built our image over a period of time. We are now exporting to 100 countries defense equipments. So another important element becomes the participation of the private sector as well. All this put together, how do you envision the export potential for the defense sector in the years to come?
See, Vishal, first and foremost, we have to ensure that our own requirements are met. And now, if we have started ensuring that 65% of our own defense production is indigenous, that itself is a huge boost. And with it, simultaneously, we are also boosting the export from virtually 1,000 crores to then 4,000 crores to now to almost about 26,000 crores, now to jump to about 50,000 crores is indicated that all said and done, capacity building takes time. Intentions can change overnight. And therefore, we have to have our indigenous capacity. We must have that surge capacity to be able to do it. And that is why the public-private partnerships that are taking place, which has helped to make guns, artillery guns in India. We've ensured that tanks are made in India. We've ensured aircraft carrier is made in India. We have just had our first test flight of our Tejas Mark 1A. We make our own helicopters. We make our own submarines. We are making our own communication systems. So, and we are making our own drones and anti-drone systems. So this is indicated that it is very essential.
One last thing, and that is from an end user perspective. And you've been the end user with a long and illustrious career in the Indian Armed Forces. From an end user perspective, what are the key elements which need to be kept in mind by this entire ecosystem of, indigenous defense production? Because ultimately, these weapon systems or these missiles or these submarines and drones and all air defense systems, they are being meant to be used by Indian Defense Forces. What is their perspective and expectation?
I think very important is that any product that is we intend to do, we send out a GSQR to tell them that this is what we require. And we also tell them the timeline by when do we require. And before those timelines have all of it as to when would it be tested, under what circumstances it will be tested, how long would the testing take time, when is the equipment to be given to us, who all will carry the test, and all of that. That is, the user makes sure that everything and all of it, when we say vocal for local, that really means international specification. So once all of that is given to the manufacturer who has bid it, and once the bidding is accepted, he goes all out. Now, very important in all these things is the manufacturer must adhere to the timelines. If it does not adhere to the timeline, then it is as good as not being given. Because the technology is changing so fast that it is unbelievable. Because if the technology approved of was a particular year and the equipment was required by a specific year, and if you don't deliver by that particular time, the technology is outdated. And again, you will find that the person to take the new technology would take so much longer time to absorb it. So it's very essential that both, therefore, the public-private participation, the corporatization, the startup, the academia, the DRDO facilities being made available, the ecosystem being created to facilitate manufacturing indigenously, make in India and made in India. All this is important.
Okay, so clearly it is not just the intent to make in India, but also the quality and the speed of delivery is something which holds tremendous value in today's age when technology keeps on changing at a very fast pace. And from an end user perspective, as General Kulkarni is pointing out, all these 3 points become really important, something which is focused upon, emphasized upon time and again by various stakeholders, including the government through its policies and the end user through its specifications as well. Thank you so much, General Kulkarni, for joining us here on Spotlight and sharing your views on India's speedy and very, very qualitative march on the road to self-reliance in defense production, which further is leading to export potential as well, increased export potential. We'll come back again on Spotlight. Till then, for more news and analysis, keep listening to Akashvani. Thank you.
Jai Hind.
You were listening to a discussion on India's growing defense prowess. The participants were Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense analyst, and Vishal Dahiya, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani.
Spotlight.